Cuchillo weren't there that black day, April 22nd, 1837, but he carried the tale inside him same as a wound that broke open fresh every sundown. "We'll never set at their table again," he says quiet. "No," says Mangus. "Next time we'll make 'em come to us." The wind whistled through the cracks in the mountain like it was carrying the news of war already. "The clans," Mangus went on. "We got to be one body. Membreno, Chaconan, Nedney. If we ain't one fist, they'll bust us finger by finger." "And how you aim to do that, dos-teh?" asked Cuchillo, lifting the black blade so the last ray of sun catched it and turned it to a streak of fire. From down the valley come the faint drum of hooves, a rider coming fast. The world don't stand still, and history waits for nobody. Night dropped over the mountains, and off yonder the campfires begun to twinkle one by one like stars that wouldn't stay put in the sky. Two chiefs stood there silent, carrying the same heavy load under that big, empty heaven. One was studying the future of a whole nation. The other was already whetting his knife to defend it. Later by the fire, dos-teh, the unwavering, stood with a presence big as the mountain itself. The flames danced on his weathered face, but his eyes showed no tiredness, only cold, quiet reckoning. He weren't counting battles won or lost no more. He was counting people. Round him the circle was full. The old men sat with hands deep in their blankets, the young bucks watched eager, and the women held their young'uns close, knowing the words coming weren't only about war, but about the very stuff the future was made of. "We can't whip 'em if we stay broke apart," he says at last, not raising his voice none. The weight of them words made the fire itself seem to duck its head. "The mountains give us hiding places, but they're prisons too. They keep us separate. The Mexicans don't lick us 'cause their guns is bigger. They lick us 'cause they find us alone." A murmur run round the circle. It was a truth every last one knowed in his bones, but nobody had said it so plain. From the shadows a young warrior clenched his fists. "And we'll hit 'em harder and oftener," he busts out. "We'll be lightning that don't never stop." Mangus turned them heavy eyes on him, calm as lead. "And after that?" he asks. "After their village's ashes? After we run off their horses? After we scoot back into the canyons? What's left behind?" The young feller dropped his eyes. Mangus picked up a burnt stick and drawed a long line in the sand by the fire. "This here's our world," he says. Then with quick, jagged strokes he scratched short, broke-up lines all along it. "This is how we live now, some here, some there, strangers under the same sky." He let it sink in. Then slow and steady he joined all them broke pieces into one long, strong backbone. "This," he says, "is what we got to become." The silence after that was heavier than the desert dark. "We won't do it with oaths," Mangus went on. "We'll do it with blood." One old man lifted white eyebrows. "Blood? More blood than we already spilt?" "Our sons fight together on the war trail," says Mangus. "But when the raid's over, they go back to their own fires. We got to wipe out the line betwixt us." He looked over at his daughters standing quiet in the back. "My girls will go to the other tribes." That time the murmur was a wave. It weren't surprise only. It was the sound of folks seeing a mighty big sacrifice. "You aim to give 'em away?" somebody asked low. Mangus shook his head, and a spark of father pride mixed with that iron look in his eyes. "I ain't giving 'em away. I'm sending 'em to tie what we can't tie with guns." In his head the plan was already built solid. One daughter to the Chaconan, another to the Warm Springs, another to the Cayotero. Where the trails didn't meet, he'd send his own blood to cut new riverbeds. When a man fights for an ally, he says, voice sharp as the knife, he can still figure the price of running. But when he fights for his own family, for his grandchildren's grandchildren, that man don't run no more. The fire crackled and throwed sparks up into the black sky. The Mexicans pay for scalps, Mangas finished, looking up at the cold stars. They figure they can buy our death. We'll buy life for the whole people. And if the tribes say no? Asks an elder. Mangas give a little smile that didn't soften his face none. They won't, 'cause they lost at Santa Rita too. That name didn't need saying twice. It was the wound that wouldn't heal, the memory of the cannon hid under them blankets. Pain, says Mangas, binds tighter than any promise. Later, when the fires was only red embers and the folks had slipped off into the dark, Mangas sat alone under the big bowl of sky. He weren't the kind to believe in miracles or easy tomorrows. He knowed some alliances would bust, and some would call his talk weakness. But he knowed one thing the hard land had taught him. Wars is fit with guns, but they's won with people. And people don't die for land. They die for them they call their own. A slim shape come out of the shadows. She walked with the same quiet sureness as her pa. Mangas didn't turn. He knowed her by the smell of sage and the soft beat of her steps. Dos-teh, he says gently. She sat down beside him where the embers still glowed under the ash. You named me after the warmth of the hearth, Pa, she says. You called me she who sits by the fire, who guards the home and brings peace. And now you're sending me off where the fires is strange. Mangas reached out that big hand to his, and for a second his rough fingers stroked her black hair. I ain't sending you to be a stranger, daughter. I'm sending you to be their fire. She looked up, and the last spark of the embers danced in her eyes. A single fire in the mountains goes out when the big winter comes, he says. But if you carry one coal to another hearth, and from there to another, the whole mountain'll shine. Cochise is a mountain of pride. He needs your warmth to see our trail is the same. You won't only be the wife of a Chiricahua chief. You'll be the seed of fire that melts the ice betwixt our peoples. Dos-teh sat quiet, seeing her own name in a new light. It weren't about setting still by the hearth. It was about keeping life burning where everything wanted to turn to ash. And if they won't take me? She asks, not scared, only sharp and clear. Mangas didn't hesitate a breath. Then you'll light the fire by yourself. She looked down at the embers, stirred 'em with a little stick. A spark jumped, then another. She breathed on 'em soft till a small, stubborn flame rise up. Fire don't ask leave to burn, she says. Mangas looked at her then, and for a moment he didn't see a daughter. He seed a beginning. No, he answers, but it's got to know where to stay. The quiet betwixt 'em warn't empty. It was a bargain. I'll go, she says at last, and I'll make Cochise's hearth burn for the Membreños just as hot as it burns for his own. Mangas nodded. There warn't pride in it, nor doubt, only plain reckoning. That night, under the cold desert stars, he knowed his sharpest weapon warn't Cuchillo Negro's knife, nor the rifles stole from the Mexicans. It was his daughter's heart, a heart that could carry fire from one people to another till the mountains warn't borders no more, but one long, steady light.